All right, welcome back, coders. Today's lesson is about 3D02, which is making a SVG logoed box that has a slide lid with a slotting here. So this is kind of what the end result is going to look like. We have a box that has a lid that can slide into these slots that are created here on the sides. So as you push your box forward, it should fit directly inside of that slot. And so you'll have a box that has an image on the lid, image of your choice. All right, so this is basically how it's going to look when we're done with it. Let's see how we can build this box from scratch. The main properties of the box are that it has walls that are equal along all the edges here, and it's slotted so that way the lid can fit inside of it. Let's see how we can create this kind of a box. First, I'm going to click on the waffle here in Tinkercad. When you sign into Tinkercad, you'll get to this position right here. We're going to create a new design. And I'm going to rename this. So I've got my project renamed so I can find it easily after I've exported this as an STL. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to decide how big I want this box to be. In the past, I made a card box, and I showed how to do that. So I'm going to do that same kind of idea here. A card box, if I look up on the internet how big a deck of cards are, I'll see that playing cards that are poker size are 2.5 by 3.5 inches, or 64 by 89 millimeters. So I'm going to go ahead and go into this area here, and I'm going to create a box that has exactly those dimensions. So I could click on Edit Grid and change my units to inches. In this case, I'm going to stick with millimeters. And I'm just going to click on the edge down here on the bottom corner of this edge, and you'll see these numbers appear. So this is 20 centimeters by 20 centimeters, or rather 20 millimeters in length. So what I need it to be is 64 by 89. So I'm going to click on this, make it 89, and then I'm going to click on the bottom one here and make this 64. Just double check here, 64 by 89, and I have 64 by 89. Now, if you wanted to change this into inches instead of millimeters, you could do that. However, I'm just going to use the millimeters in this case. I'm going to move my grid to where, or move my object to where it looks good on the grid here. I have a nice right angle right here. Looks like it is attached just right. Yep, perfect. Okay. So this is how big the deck of cards is going to be. However, I need this to be a whole because the deck of cards is going to fit inside of this area, but I want it to be, I want the actual box to be bigger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this after I've made it into a hole by clicking on the shape here. I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to make this hole right here, I'm going to make it really tall. To do that, you can click on the not on the arrow here, but on the white square here. If you click that up, it makes it nice and tall. When I punch this hole out, I want it to be to where the top of the box is totally exposed. So here's the duplicate of this where the lid isn't quite so high. I'm going to make this my solid. So basically this is going to be the actual box. I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger than it is now. So to do that, I'm going to hold down Shift on my keyboard, and then I'm going to click and drag on this, and you'll see it gets bigger by however much I want it to go. And it gets bigger all the way around. So I'm going to make the walls 24 centimeters around here. So it's going to be 24, or rather the height's going to be 24. That's going to add 4 centimeters to all the sides. Now I'm going to put this back on put the hole back inside of this box. To do that, I'm going to select both of the objects. I'm going to click on Align here. And when you click on Align, you're going to see these little dots appear around the sides of your objects. We're going to click on this one to align them both to this center here. And then we're also going to click on this one to align them in the center this way. And when we do that, you'll see that the box lines up inside itself here. The only exception is the very bottom. We're going to have to grab this hole and make it go up just a little bit. I'm going to move it up to 2 millimeters up. So as you can see here, oops. If you grab this arrow right here and move it up, you're moving the whole shape up or down. And what you're going to see over here on the side when you do that is this number that tells you how far it is off the ground. In this case, it's 30 centimeters. I'm going to bring it up to where it's 4 centimeters off of the ground, like that, or millimeters. I'm sorry, I keep using the wrong terminology. It's centimeters. So now I have the hole that's going to cut out of this box. If I just select both of them like so, I can group them by pressing Control G or just clicking on this icon here. All right, now I've cut the object out. I now have this box here that is ready to have a lid installed in it. Now what I need to do to install the lid is I'm going to pick one of these sides here and grab one of these clear boxes. I want to find out how big I want my lid to be. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to align these two objects together. So I'm going to select both of them, click on Align, and I'm just going to align them right here to the center, in this center dot right here. That puts it to where I know that this is perfectly in the center here. Now what I want to do is I want to drag out the sides of this until I'm about halfway through the wall that you see over here. It should be going about halfway through there. So I'm going to move it just a little bit. It seems like it's about half. That should work for me. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I want to make sure that this is going about halfway through the wall. This should work. It's going a little bit more, but that's okay. There'll be a little bit more of an area for the lid to actually stick to. So now I've got that part done. I'm going to flatten it a little bit and decide how tall I want my lid to be. I'm going to make it, I'll say 8. 8 millimeters tall is good. Now I'm going to raise this up a little bit using that same arrow. You can use this arrow when you click on it to drag an object up or down. You can also hold down Control and use the up and down arrows to move the object up or down. So I'm going to move this object. I actually want it to be thinner than this. This is too thin, too thick of a lid in my opinion. I'm going to move it down to 4 because then it would match what's inside here. The top and the bottom are going to be the same in thickness. So now I'm going to move it up a little bit and I'll put it right about there. That looks good to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just drag this lid into the box until it's about flush up against the box here. And then I'm going to drag the box to make it longer. To do that, you can just grab the edge that's right here that is attached to 3D model. And we're just going to bring this forward until it is inside about halfway through this wall right here. Now what's going to happen is when we cut this hole out, it's going to be slotted to where you can insert your lid into this side and it's going to be held up by the edges of this box right here. But before we group, what we want to do is we want to duplicate this object because then we know this is exactly the size of the lid that we need because it's exactly the size of the hole that we're cutting out. So I'm going to select both the box and the lid hole here. I'm going to group them together and it's going to cut that slotted hole out through the edges. So there it is. You can see that when we put our lid in, it's going to be held in by these little walls here. The last thing is an optional thing. You can cut out this part, this top part of the lid. This is going to be the weakest part of your box, so it is going to be the first thing to break. An easy thing to do is just to put a hole in over here and make it to where you're just going to cut that out of there. You're just going to take a hole and chop that one section out. I'm going to align these objects together here. Just along the center there. There we go. So as you can see, the area I'm going to cut out is just this top part right here. If I group these together, chop those pieces off, and now I will be able to slide in my lid perfectly here. If you want, you can make your lid to where it reaches down or it reaches up to catch onto this object, onto the side of the box. Or you can just leave it how it is like this. Now we're going to take our SVG graphic and we're going to make it the size of this hole right here. So we can make this into a solid if we want. I'm going to put it on the ground just to make it easy here. Make sure that this number over here is 0. That's how you know that it's on the ground. And I know this is exactly the size of what I want to go in here. What you can do is, if you go into your shape panel, you can change the radius just a little bit of your lid, and that'll round out the edges a little bit, so it'll make it to where it slides in there nice and easy. It'll be an easier fit. If you want it to be a tighter fit, you can just keep this ratio down for radius. That's kind of up to you how you want it to be. Now we're going to import. We're going to click on this import button, click on choose a file, and we're going to input the image that we wanted to use as an SVG. Find one here. There's an SVG graphic right here. So I'm going to import this in. Here we can see it. I'm going to take this object here and I'm going to shrink it down. I'm going to hold down Shift and grab a corner and just drag down to make it smaller. And I want it to be on this lid right here. So I'm going to just raise it up a little bit. Make it about the size that I want it to be. I want it to take up more of this space. So I'm going to cut off some of the edges of this. I'm going to grab just a box full here. Make sure I can cut off a portion of this. I don't need this section right here, so I'm just going to cut it out of there. There we go. I select both of these objects, click on group, and it'll cut that hole out for me. There we go. Now I'm going to align both of these objects together. I'm going to select both of them, and I'm going to align them. Clicking on the center here makes them line up perfectly in the center this way, and clicking on it this way makes sure that they're both aligned up and down. So it looks pretty good. I just need this to be a little bit bigger. There we go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this into a hole, and I'm just going to put it down about halfway through my lid here. Maybe just that much is good. Make it just a little bit longer. There we go. All right. So I can see it's going to cut a little bit into my lid here. If I click on both of the objects and group them, this is how you can cut an area to indent outwards from the top. Now there's another way that you can do this. You can make it to where the object is cut into your shape, which will make your lid actually fit a little bit bigger. So this is one way to do it. I'm going to just duplicate this before I do this so I can show you the other way to make a lid. So I'm going to go ahead and group these so you can see that. There we go. I've got this lid to where I have it sticking out. The shape is sticking out of the lid topper. Now the alternative is, take this and group that as well. So I'm just going to keep this for posterity so we can see what that looks like. The other option of what you can do is you can make this a solid, like so, and then you want to take an object that is exactly the same dimensions as this. So let me just see what these are real quick. It's 107 by 71. So I'm going to do that same thing here, 107 by 71. There we go. So 107 by 71. Now I know that these objects are exactly the same. I'm going to align them to each other, just as we did before, to make them perfectly centered. I'm going to make this object here, sticking out a little bit. I'm going to raise it up, And basically, I'm going to cut this. I'm going to make this a hole again. I'm going to push it down into this box. And then I'm going to use the box as my hole. So now I have this where I have just the object here. If I take a box, cut this out, you're going to see that you're left with just the shape. So now I can take this shape and turn it into a hole. And I can use the shape as a hole to cut into this object. I don't want to cut all the way through it. I want to see where I'm cutting into it. So as I move it down, you can see that's about halfway through right there. I'm going to move it to where I want it to be. Pretty good right there. All right, now if I group these objects together, now it cuts a hole out of the lid, which indents it, makes it look a little bit different. So you've got two ways you can do this. You can make your lid to where it sticks out. You're cutting a hole around the shape itself. Or you can make it to where the shape is the hole itself by making it into a kind of stamp and then cutting that in. All right, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. You now know how to make two different kinds of lids. I only need you to make one kind, but you're going to make this slotted box as well. All right, I hope you enjoy yourself with this project, and I will hopefully speak to you again soon.